I think that the concern becomes, and I recognize that we're dealing with K through 2 students, and I appreciate that, right? So I mean, there's only so much serious physical injury an 8-year-old can really, make happen, perpetrate, I guess, for lack of a better term. But we talk about school climate, and we talk about the mental health of kids and kids that are struggling to go to school for varying anxiety-ridden issues, even at those young ages. And, right in this bill, we're concerned about school climate. But at the same time, we're saying if you have a first or second grader who is violent in the classroom every day with a variety of people, and, it causes concern for even students who weren't assaulted. So you have one student who's a 7-year-old who's sitting there and doesn't see violence in their home. It's very foreign to them. And they see one of their classmates come and be violent towards a classmate. And 2 days later, that student is back again. Now, we heard in public hearing that, well, perhaps the school is not meeting the needs of that child. And I would agree. And I think that we need to work collaboratively as a village to meet the needs of that child, but not at the expense of every other kid in the classroom, Mr. Chairman. And that is where I start to pause and say, I think that we do need to meet the needs of that child. But as I read this, that kid can come back to school to the detriment of every one of his or her classmates, perhaps before those needs are met. And then we're creating a ripple and residual effect. So I'll ask you, can you alleviate that concern for me?
I don't think anybody can alleviate that concern with 100% guarantee. I think that the districts would take all the necessary precautions to ensure that any student in any classroom is safe, first and foremost. And if that is potentially causing issue for a student to have another student return, that would be addressed on the local level.
But I'm not sure that they can here. And that's sort of my point. I think that we're being too restrictive. And it's not just the other students. I go back to my earlier comments and what we're putting on our teachers. And then we say, well, we don't have enough people that want to be teachers, so we have to legislate minimum pay to try to get more people to become teachers while we're creating a worse work environment for them. And that's, I just want to be clear. I get, as well as anybody in here, that you get a 5-6-year-old who has a lot of behavioral issues and whatnot. We as a society benefit to work together to get that child to a point where they can exist in a cohesive way with their classmates in class and hopefully as an adult in society. But we cannot do it to the detriment of our teaching profession, our schools, and the safety and well-being of every other kid in that classroom. And I think that in this particular piece of legislation, we are again being too restrictive on our local officials. And instead of saying, let's let the principals and the school administration, the guidance counselors, and all of the individuals there to support these kids make these best decisions, because maybe this kid needs 4 days before he or she can come back to school in the interest of their well-being as well as everybody else. I think this is too restrictive. For that reason, I can't support it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.